welcome back to my channel. So I've had a few requests to do more videos where I'm talking. So today I've decided to make a video tutorial on how I make my resin charms. So I hope you enjoy it, and if you have any questions you can just comment below or jump on my Instagram and you can just ask me some questions on there, or just comment what you think, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Okay, so what I do when I'm working with my charms, first of all, I always wear gloves, and this is to stop any irritation on the skin. Apparently you can actually develop allergies by working with resin, so I always wear gloves just to try and prevent that. So I've got my 2-part epoxy resin. The brand I use is Craft Smart Clear Gloss, and it's in Australia, so I'm not sure if you can actually get that overseas. And it's a 2-part epoxy resin. So I mix 2 equal parts of A and B, and then I spend about 3 minutes mixing it together just to make sure it's really thoroughly mixed, because the last thing you want when you put so much time into making charms, because like as you'll see in a minute, it's quite a long process, you don't want the resin to not cure properly, because then you've ruined the whole piece, and it's really frustrating. I've done it before, trust me, it's quite upsetting when you spend so much time making something and then you get to the end and it's like not cured properly. So yeah, I spend about 3 minutes mixing it up and making sure it's really well blended together. So after I've stirred it for about 3 minutes, I start to pour it into my mold. I try and do each piece roughly the same amount, so it's usually about 3 mils, just enough so that when I put the beads in, like the letters that I use for my words and stuff, that they actually just sit in there nicely. And you also don't want to have the pieces too thick either, so yeah, just a small amount in the bottom's fine. So I leave that for about 5 minutes just to let the bubbles rise to the top, and then I go over that with a just like a lighter. I think this is the ones that you use for the barbecues. So it's kind of like got a long thing on it so you don't burn your fingers trying to use it. Yeah, and I just go over it quickly just to pop all the little bubbles that have come to the surface. And just be really careful doing this as well, because I've actually heard that the molds can like melt or catch on fire, and I've never ever had a problem with that. I've never even seen a mold burn, but I've heard people say that it's happened, so just be really careful and just like quickly go over the bubbles and that should be fine. And then I just go around the edges with a toothpick, and this is just going to stop any of the bubbles that are sticking to the edges that I couldn't get with the lighter. Okay, so I've got my little letter beads in place. I actually pre-prepare them before I put them into the mold, because I want to know exactly which words I want to put in, and I also want to know that I've got all the letters, because sometimes you know, if you use too many you run out of letters. And I also want to have my big main pieces of glitter set aside with them as well, so I know which pieces are going with which. And this just saves time, so when I'm actually putting them into the molds, I'm not wasting time like trying to find letters or trying to find the glitter that I want. It's just easier to have it all ready to go before I start putting them in. So I'm just using my long tweezers to put the letters into the mold. And so for these pieces you actually have to put the letters upside down and the word back to front. So when you take the little charm out, you can, like, the front is facing downwards. So that's why you have to put it back to front, it's like a mirror. And I've made a few mistakes with this before. It can be a bit tricky sometimes, but with practice you get used to it. And also when I put the letters on that clear mold to prepare before I actually put it in, you can check, like you can look underneath and see if the words are the right way around and check that the letters are the right way around before you actually put it into the mold. And that will save you a bit of time as well, making sure it's the right way around. So I don't spend too much time making sure that it's in there perfectly at this stage. I kind of just use my tweezers to put it in there roughly. And then once all the letters are in there, I kind of go back over with a toothpick and make sure they're all placed properly. So this just saves time as well, like you just want to get them in there and then you can go back and adjust them afterwards. Okay, so I've started to put in my main like sequins or big pieces of glitter or whatever you want to call it. So the spider webs, I'm just using a little toothpick to kind of push them to the front of the piece, and so the resin's covering it. And then I'm just going to go over and put my other little pieces of glitter in. So I use like these shiny stars that you can see. I really like these stars. I think they're beautiful, and I use them in like so many of my key rings because I just think they're so pretty. So yeah, I just go in and push them to the front as well, so they kind of stand out a little bit from the other glitter. I've taken my gloves off at this stage because I'm not actually touching the resin, so I find it a bit easier to work without the gloves. So if I'm not actually touching anything, the toothpick's touching the resin, it's fine not to wear gloves as long as you're careful. And I'm just going to go around and make sure the letters are facing the right direction and that they're nice and straight, or in the case of the ones that say weirdo, they've kind of got a nice curve that match the shape of the mold, so when you take it out it looks, you know, kind of suits the shape and everything. And then what I do for the next, you know, 10-15 minutes is I kind of just keep checking the letters, make sure they're in the right spot, because what happens with epoxy resin, it's like a chemical reaction, so the resin actually heats up and it kind of yeah, the letters can kind of move around a little bit, and when I say move around, they're like not floating all over the place, but there's like tiny little movements and the letters kind of shift a little bit, or they don't stay straight. So yeah, it's called babysitting, when you just go over and check that the little letters are in where they should be. And after about 20 minutes or half an hour, it should be kind of set enough that they're not going to move anymore. So once you've put all the letters in, 10-15 minutes, and then they should be fine. You can just leave them. Okay, so at this stage I've left the charms for about 8 to 10 hours, maybe not even that long actually, maybe only about 6 to 8 hours. But anyway, the resin should be a little bit tacky, it's not completely cured, but at this stage this is where we add the glitter and stuff on the back. So I kind of go from big to small when I'm adding my glitters. So when I add my clear layer, I put all my big pieces, and like my main pieces with the shiny stars, I put them at the front. And then once the resin pieces are a little bit more tacky, I can add like a chunky glitter. And then after that, I add like a really fine glitter. And I feel like that gives the best effect with the key charms. It just looks the nicest when you do it like that. So for the letters that are black, I'm actually using like a darker glitter, and then for the white letters, I tend to use like a lighter glitter, but you can kind of experiment, work out what looks nice. Like there's no right and wrong with glitter, you can just basically use whatever you want. Whatever you think looks cool. I mean, glitter looks beautiful with everything, so I'm sure it's going to look great no matter what you do. Okay, so now I've left the pieces overnight to kind of set a little bit, so it's about 12 hours since I first started. And at this stage I'm gonna start mixing up my colours, so whatever colours I want the charms to be. I tend to do pastels, so I've got some pink, I've got blue, and I've got purple. So this is another batch of resin that I'm using. And I put just a little bit of acrylic white paint, and that gives it a really nice pastel colour. And for this pink one, I've got a, what are they called, alcohol inks from Miniature Sweet, just to give it a bit of colour. For the purple one, same thing again. So just some white acrylic paint and then a drop of the purple alcohol ink from Miniature Sweet. And for the blue one, because I don't really like the blue that I got in the kit from Miniature Sweet, it's like a little bit dark. So So I just use a little bit of my pastel, well it's not really pastel, but it's a blue acrylic paint mixed in with white paint to make it like a pastel. And then I also do a really small batch of just some black resin. So with some of my charms I like to add a little bit of black, it kind of looks like a little bit more pastel goth, looks cool. So just alcohol ink from Miniature Sweet once again mixed in with the resin and nothing else, so it's just pure black and that's it. Okay, so I'm just starting to pour my colours into my mould. I generally have a pretty good idea of what colours I want with which letters or phrases. So I do this part fairly quickly just because, for the same reason as before, I don't like it to set quickly. Like it sets within about half an hour, it becomes a little bit hard to work with, so the quicker you do it the easier it's going to be. So if you plan it a little bit beforehand, it's going to make your life a bit easier. And same thing as the clear layer of resin, you don't want it to be too thick, so I try and do just a few mil of colour, that's all you need really. Because remember, once you've finished, it's going to be 3 layers of resin. So they end up being about almost a centimetre thick, maybe not that thick, but they're, yeah, you just don't want it to have too much resin there. And I also keep a little mould, or I've got like quite a few moulds, but I always keep a mould aside for my excess resin, just so it doesn't go to waste. So I usually use the moon, or I've got a cute seashell mould, or those little wings, like cute little wings. So I've always got some moulds handy to put my excess resin in, just so it doesn't go to waste, and you get some really cute like colour mixes like from them as well. Now once again, just go over the pieces with a lighter just to pop all the bubbles, and then a toothpick, just run it around the edges to make sure there's no bubbles stuck to the edges. Okay, so I've let this all sit overnight. This is another example of just a little wing moulds where I've just put some excess resin. So now the whole thing's completely cured, and you can start to take the pieces out and see how pretty they look and how they turned out. This is my favourite bit out of the whole process. I just love seeing how they turned out. Okay, so once they're all set and you've taken them out of the mould, basically what I do is I just use a really fine piece of sandpaper and I just sand the back of them a little bit, so they don't have to be completely flat on the back because that helps with the doming process at the end, so you'll see that in a minute or so, but it kind of just takes the rough edges off, or yeah, it just makes it a little bit smoother. So once I've done this, I actually just take it out to my sink and give it a bit of a rinse in some soapy water just to get all the dust off. If there's a lot of dust, I would probably wear like a mask, but because I do it by hand, there's not a lot of dust, like it stays on the sandpaper, it doesn't go in the air and stuff. Okay, so next I'm just going to be putting some bales on the back. I just use UV resin to stick them on, and it's not like completely set on the back there, it's kind of just to hold it in place. You'll see in a minute how I just use the UV torch to kind of set it. So you just put a little blob of resin, put the bale kind of roughly where you think the top is, and you just check underneath to see where it is. And I completely got it in the wrong spot, but yeah, you just move it over to where it needs to be, and just cure it with the UV torch. You could also use super glue for this stage, but I feel like the UV resin is really good because you can cure it straight away and it doesn't move, but with super glue it kind of moves around a little bit, if that makes sense, before it actually sets, so it takes a little bit longer. Whereas with the torch, so I leave it on there for literally like 10 seconds, if that, and that's enough to set it, just so it stays in place. Okay, so once you've done all the bales on the back, I mix up another batch of resin, and I actually use a different resin for this one, and it's only because I got a batch off eBay that wasn't very good. Like, I don't use it with other projects, I just use it for doming because it's quite thick. So it was kind of one of those things where I just happened to buy it, and because I don't use it for anything else and it's thick and it's still good quality, it's just hard to work with, I just use it for doming. And I mix a little bit of the Pearl X Pearl White powder in with it just to give it a really nice shimmer, and that still lets the other colours from the charms come through instead of like covering up the back completely. Yeah, so the resin is, oh, I forget what brand it is. I'll put a link down below to the brand. It's not terrible, it's just really thick and hard to work with. Like if you're pouring it into molds and stuff, it's like really hard. But for a doming resin, it's quite good because, you know, it doesn't take too long to thicken up and then you can work with it straight away. Because when you're doing doming, you want to make sure that if it's too runny, it'll actually just spill off your pieces straight away. So you want it to be like a little bit thick. So if I'm using my normal resin, I'll usually just wait for like 20 minutes before I start doming, just so it's a bit thicker, not so runny. So then I just pour a little blob onto each back, each back of the resin, and just use my spatula to kind of push it around to the edge of the resin, make sure it covers up the bale properly, make sure it's nice and even. Sorry, there's some like birds going off in the background here. Yeah, and just make sure that it's all nice and even around the edges. So when I do the sanding, this is why I don't like to have it completely flat, because if it's got an actual like bit of an edge around, like a lip around the edge of it, that'll really help with the resin not spilling over as well. And then you let this set for about 12 hours, possibly longer if you can leave it overnight, or like, you know, a whole day, that would be awesome. Like 24 hours, and you can see the back's nice and shiny. The bale is not going to go anywhere when you do it like this. I've learnt from my mistakes. I used to do it with just UV resin before, and when you do it like that, it doesn't actually cure properly because the UV can't get all the way underneath the bale. So yeah, I had some tips from some of my online community friends, and they told me to dome over the back, and it's been the best thing ever because it makes sure that it's, you know, really strong and durable. So yeah, and then I just pop some keychains on. And you can see in a minute with the bigger pieces that I make, the heart pieces, I actually use a bigger split ring, and that's because it's a little bit more durable. And I feel like with the little Pikachus and the round keychains, I like the smaller key charms. They look a little bit nicer. But yeah, you can see the bigger pieces here. The bigger keychains look a bit better with the bigger heart pieces. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed my video. Please like, subscribe, comment below, you know, the whole deal. Join me on Instagram. I sell all my pieces on Etsy as well. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. Thanks, bye!